Okay, now it is time to do another question and answer because really it's cheap content and sometimes, oh god, I shouldn't really admit that it's cheap content. But anyways, I want to clear out most of my not gonna lie tab. I used to use Curious Cat, but I don't know, Curious Cat's kind of janky. Everyone starts using Not Gonna Lie. Now, the link to Not Gonna Lie is in my link tree, but please do not bombard it with questions after this. I know you're going to, but anyways. I know, Gio, you mean to tell me that you're just making lazy content? Well, I mean, everyone makes lazy content. I mean, of course. But I mean, these are good questions, so let's see if I could get to all of them, which I want to. So I'm not going to give you as much elaboration as the questions I get on my Patreon Q&A, but we will see. So number one, and these are all anonymous, of course, and I'll try to filter out the coal, obviously. What do you make of the idea that art presents a metaphysical claim? This is the way the world or life is, and that our reaction to that art, positive or negative, is determined by whether we affirm or deny the implicit metaphysical claim. I think, yes, this is sort of unclear when it comes to artworks that are but a bit more abstract or conceptual, because, again, a lot of the artwork being produced now, it hits you over the head with its worldview. But fundamentally, say that you come from a particular civilization, and say that even nowadays, or even looking at an artwork from the past, you have, say, a mythological theme. Let's say Cupid and Psyche, for example. Or let's say, Thomas Cole's The Course of Civilizations. Of course, you're going to have an instinctual, and I would even say a spiritual reaction to that. And I think that it's not as simple as rejecting or affirming a claim. I think that when it comes to the artwork, especially the genre painting, especially even like, say, literature, I think, is a more easier, it's easier to answer that question in the space of literature because, of course, literature relies on narrative. It relies on a sort of moral conceit. And I think that it's much easier when it comes to narrative works, be it literature or film or the series or theater, than it is for the work of art when it comes to the visual mediums. Even though I think that painting, even the landscape painting, can have narration. But I do think that there is something within us that either instinctively repels or, draws us in for a variety of reasons. And I do think that it comes to not just like the conditioning of one's lifetime in terms of a society. We live in a society, but not just the society we live in, but also something deep within us as a people that has to do with our genetics, our spirituality, everything that has informed us on a surface and conscious level, but also on a deeply unconscious level, on a collective level. And I think that all great works of art have that ability to operate within a particular, facticity of being within a civilization or a culture. And that is why people instinctively are drawn towards or repelled by certain forms of art or certain styles. But when it comes to literature, this is a bit more clear because it does rely on, even depicting everyday life and the sort of moral messaging. And I think nowadays the reason this is an easier thing to answer is because nowadays most works of art that people are exposed to are like cinema and series and things of that nature, rather than even proper literature proper, even the novel. And especially the visual work of art. The visual work of art becomes aestheticized. It becomes just a pleasantry, or it becomes kitsch, or it becomes illustration, and it's in the service completely of something else. So in a way, like the average normie has very little experience or very little exposure to fine art. But even within the painting, there can be a great scene of a mythology or a heroics or even abstract works. I mean, this is what Kandinsky talked about. Can set up a whole narrative that can evoke emotion, that can evoke feeling and sentiment and even a moral conceit. But then, and so it becomes much more instinctual in a way than following a narrative and following a series of events. But of course, cinema, good cinema, combines what is great in terms of painting and the visual or plastic arts and what is great in literature, but not wholly literature. It's not just a theater being filmed. There is an element of painting there in a way. There's an element of the way a visual artist would approach the real or something that is surreal, right? So, yeah, that's a very interesting question. I do think it's true. So, moving on. What literature would you recommend for newbies in the dissident right other than Bronze Age mindset? I think, you should probably start with fundamentals of both philosophy and other things. I think that read De Juvenals on Power. That's probably a good start. I think you should maybe not read meme books. Of course, I'm trying to make a meme book, so I think you should start off with why, like great works that a lot of right wingers. I mean, I know like the usual Bronze Age mindset, the usual like Bappian Vitalist is like read Celine, read Younger, read Mishima, and yeah, read all those things obviously. But I think you probably should have a grasp on almost like neutral sources of what makes political ideology, what makes up politics itself. You should probably read the classics in terms of political theory, right? Even like I think that you should go beyond just like, here is my like e-right dissident literature. I think you should really start reading things that are very like foundational to political thought in general. Like there's a whole canon of Western political ideas and literature there. There's books, even like the founding fathers, right? And if you're American, the Greeks, read, like, I know Marcus Aurelius becomes a meme because all these like masculinity grifters, but yeah, read, Meditations, read, Juvenal, read Carlyle on heroism, read, I know it's like a meme, but yeah, even read like De Maistre, read Julius Evola. Maybe read Julius Evola eventually. But these like I think like the E-right probably does suffer from like here are meme books, and you probably should branch out to going to the root of things. I know that's why it's good that Spangler has reached popularity, because I do think you should read The Decline of the West. That's probably a good starting point. Read Del Noce's book. That's a good one. But even like the foundations of political thought, that's probably your best bet. Even like reading the Greeks. Degeneration by Nardau is a good one. Yeah, so that's pretty good. Newbie dissident right literature. So this is, I don't know how I'm going to phrase this one for if this portion goes on YouTube. Given the grotesque biological reality of global homogeneity, let's put it that way, ideology, HRT, gender surgeries, sickness, etc., obesity, it is any wonder that such a cruel reality must be masked by the cartoonization of it. Obsession with cartoons, the fake wholesomeness, perfect in the virtual. There's this book called On Cuteness that I'm going to cite in my book on neoliberal kitsch, where and it's a pro cuteness book about like how cuteness defines political categories. Cuteness is not like kitsch. Cuteness is like sort of gender ambiguous, and I do think that cute chibi cartoons that comes from the Tumblr aesthetic the reason that the political left is drawn to it is because precisely not only does it infantilize, but also it makes things ambiguous, and it sort of like masks not just the seriousness of reality. Because I think like anime is a different form of cute that deserves exploration on its own. But I do think like the cartoonization, like with Humans of Flat Design and Ilobro Catch and all that, the reason the cartoon, like, first of all, it's a painfully soillennial trait, the whole like cute aggressiveness thing. And the reason the flags in the bio people are drawn to it is because I think it can mask the edges of reality, but also there's a deep compulsion. I don't want to psychologize, but there is a deep psychologization there when it comes to why am I attracted to childishness? Why am I attracted to the cuteness of things? Why is there something, not like a serious cuteness. I think anime is a serious cuteness in a way, although there is like coal when it comes to anime. But I think that even like our political enemies, certain ones are drawn to anime and drawn to like cuteness and so forth. I think that there is a need to not just mask reality, but also to render reality into manageable units, into something that is aestheticized to the point of childishness. And it really is part and parcel with the political project of the global left. And I think that you could say that the reason, because cuteness is sort of transversal, it is sort of universalized. It is the final frontier of aesthetics. It is, in a way, very easily it depicts an easily manageable reality where a lot of the issues that plague the work of art, the sort of moral conceits and so forth, those are done away with. Those are sort of masked. Those are, the rough edges are rounded off in very plushy, cutesy type of aesthetics. And I think that's why Tumblr was drawn to this. Of course, there's the dark side to cuteness. I mean, the whole, like, I'm damaged trauma core thing was also present. And that's more of like, I wouldn't say an aesthetic. That's more of like, because people that posted that stuff, a lot of them did suffer a lot of serious trauma in their lives, especially from childhood. And a lot of it was like a coping mechanism. And I think that the problem is that when you take the cuteness as a coping mechanism on Tumblr culture especially, but of course it's older and like a lot of boards, a lot of shut-ins and so forth, a lot of femcells. The coping mechanism then becomes an aesthetic. And when it becomes aestheticized in the internet, then you have this sort of a politics, a kitchified politics that comes from it. And I think that's a big problem, is that it starts to mask reality. It starts to become a virtualized world where all the contradictions are solved, where all of the cultures are sort of mashed together, and cuteness takes it and makes a sort of, I would say, kitchified depiction of reality. And it's like, and of course, like, there's a nefarious agenda to it as well. Like, why do you think that they love this like childish, bright color aesthetic? I mean, there's obviously some nefarious thing going on there when it comes to the activist class of the political left, the global left. And yeah, I think that it's like you're trying to take the ugliness of the reality we live in, and you're trying to like make this cutesy, kitschy depiction of it. There's obviously something going on there. It is informed by the psychological makeup of it. It's sort of like a return to this like infantilized great mother impulse, It's very chthonic in a way. Cuteness can be chthonic. So I think that's why there's like this cartoonization of reality. And obviously, like, I will go into like how it's kitchified in my book. So can't wait for that one. So another one. So again, these are all anonymous. These don't come from particular people. Dissident nonfiction authors. I already answered that. Why did I screen cap that one? Are indigenous claims to special existence in connection to land the same as Heidegger/Dugin's concept of Dasein specific to peoples? Yes, I would say yes, but in a way you have to parse it out, because then, of course, this claim to indigeneity has been weaponized by the global left, and it's become something that it's not. It's become another form of, global progressivism that is mediated to some groups but denied from other groups. You know why? I'm not going to explain. I mean, you get that. But I think that, Dugan especially, he talks about the North American indigenous people as having that claim to indigeneity in that. But then again, I think you do have to avoid like Shire nationalism. Shire, what did Gorin call it from War Report? Shire Disneyland nationalism, where you get your own little special indigenous group and that you get your own little land and that can be easily weaponized by the regime, the global regime, to pit people against each other. And also, regional blocks will always win out. Regional powers, like even the North American indigenous people didn't have like this like Shire, noble savage, Rousseauian nationalism. They also had regional blocks. I mean, here where I live, it's the Iroquois, right? So I think that the claims are similar, but when it comes to Heideggerian Dasein, of course, he has a European context for that, and it's the ability of owning space. It's the ability of abstracting our rulership over space and time. And it's sort of different than a lot of like these post-colonial and indigenous studies academics talking about indigeneity and so forth. I mean, there is a difference there, but yet it does have similar characteristics. That a people is wedded to the land, and the people that express their dominion over it, and they come about from particular context and time, and they come about from this organic process of civilization. It's similar, but it's a bit different when it comes to European Faustian man. But yeah, I would say it's largely similar. So moving on. Hey there, I really... Oh, that's the crush. Oh my god. That's like a common one that people send. It's always listen to this song, Enigma Paradox Dangerous, the second chapter acoustic. Oh my god. That's like people were going around, not gonna lie, sending that. Is there anyone in the E-Dissonant Right focusing on historical / archival preservations or serving as historians for us, given the almost all of our records are digital, easily scrubbed? We run the risk of only surviving records of us 100 years from now being those of our enemies publishing about us. There are a few. I mean, I like to think I'm doing that work. I mean, that series that I'm probably never going to get to until, like, later on in the year about the right. But also, I think, like, there was this book that I think back in the day, it was called, like, it was a compilation of, like, NRX blog posts. And I think you could only buy it from, like, Bitcoin. So I never got a chance to buy it. I think, like, even, like, social matter essays and stuff were in there. I think, like, even essays from Thermidor writers were in there. But, yeah, there needs to work to be done. I mean, there's probably YouTubers that are doing this work. I mean, I know that the history of the E-Right has to be written. And, I mean, I remember there used to be, like, Forgotten Frog Twitter. There's, like, forgotten accounts. Like, Forgotten Nemitz, Forgotten Land Shark. There should be, like, Forgotten ZHP. But there was Forgotten Frog Twitter, but then he left, he got suspended. And people didn't like it because it was sort of like an art project, in my opinion, where he would, like, switch quotes, you know. He would, like, attribute quotes to different authors. He always had the watermarks on top of it. And I think I should write something on stock photos or something. That'd be interesting. As a side note. But yeah, there is no, like, real legit historians. I mean, I know, like, there's some outsiders. There's always, like, glowy academics that are like, I am a extremism tracker. I am an extremism expert. And I, like, write hit pieces on the E-Right. Those are not reliable sources. There has to be in-house people doing this. I mean, we all, like, bandy about the lore of, like, remember when this happened? Remember when this happened on Twitter one day? Remember when Trump was elected or walked down the staircase? It's like, yeah, sorry, the elevator. This history is yet to be written, but I'm sure there are people trying to do this, but of course they're condemned to, like, obscure blog spots and so forth. Or Substacks, but maybe, who knows? Into classical music, favorite composers. I'm not that into, I should be. I like Scriabin, I like a lot of the abstract stuff. I like Schoenberg. I like a lot of the atonal stuff. Giorgio Ligeti. I like Bertolt Brecht, even though he was, a communist, whatever. But yeah, I should get into it more. I have a lot of friends who are into it, like, Philip Daniel, Brahms Respecter. Brahms is actually really good, but I'm not that knowledgeable on classical music as I should be. Um, Ever visit Dixie? No, I want to one day. I want to visit Dixie. I want to go down south one day. I always wanted to. I mean, my aunt has been to Louisiana, and has been to Myrtle Beach, Carolina. I want to visit Dixie one day. I want to visit. I have a lot of friends in the South. Thoughts on North American continentalism and annexationism? Never gonna happen. I wish it did, but no. I mean, you can't. I mean, the only way I would support it is if there was like a Basedworld America that was run by the Chuds, but it's never gonna happen. I think it like the North American Union thing used to be like a conspiracy theorist motif. I remember Alex Jones had a lot of things about had a lot of issues with it. There was this documentary called United We Fall about the North American Union. But I do think that, in all purpose, in anything but name, Canada kind of is like an American colony. But, like, to unite Canada with a broken America is not going to do it. You're just going to add to the brokenness. I mean, I think that Canada being annexed explicitly by America, it would only happen in an extreme state of exception. But I do think that Canada should probably work on trying to create its own notion of what even identity is. But if that's not going to happen, which under the Trudeau regime it's never going to happen, then basically Canada is just America's hat, and Canada will be annexed by America in all but name only. Not explicitly, but certainly, I mean, we all know who rules the roost here. George Grant was unironically right. But no, I mean, it's a nice thought, but I mean, America is pretty dysfunctional now. I don't see how being annexed by like a global like liberal regime America is going to make a difference, But anyways, moving on. Aside from painting and podcasting, what other hobbies are you into? Printmaking. I don't have hobbies. My hobbies are what I do every day. But what do I do? Go to Buffalo Wild. No, I was getting Buffalo Wild Wings. No. I mean, I watch pro wrestling and hockey. I mean, that's But hobbies that I actually do. See, it's hard when you're an artist because like people think that's a hobby. It's like that. What I do every day is what I love, so I don't really have a quote unquote hobby. I mean, maybe I should. Maybe I should go outside and touch grass. Hobbies. I don't know. My old man gardens. I mean, I help him out with that, but yeah, I mean, what I do pretty much is considered a hobby by people. So, anyways, my aunt on Twitter account got banned. Had a plan to launch a Substack and podcast. Any strategies for gaining readerships, followers, listeners now that I'm starting back at zero? I think if you have like solid ride or die fans or like people that your mutuals, hopefully you'll gain it back. But I mean, it's very hard to grow nowadays. You basically had to get on a ship and ride the waves. But I think that, first of all, the superiority of posting will always win out. And I think that even a small account can have a good Substack or podcast if your posting is good and it's Kino. But also just like network with people, make friends, don't be, as cantankerous as possible. Because I do believe like the dirty equivalent of gaining clout is to just fight with people all the time. I think that's a cheap way of doing it. I think just like the superiority of posting, have friends that are willing to promote you, have bigger accounts that are your friends, that you're even just willing to like, as a shot into the dark DM, if the DMs are open, be like, hey, I have this thing, can you help me out? Or can you like review it or listen to it a little bit and give me a retweet? Don't do it excessively. I hate when people do that. But anyways, yeah, there's like helpful tips to do. I mean, it's always just inserting yourself in a community and networking. I mean, the online world is, presented us with an opportunity to do it because I'm like, I don't know, I'm kind of like an introverted person. I mean, when I'm in a crowd of people, I'm not introverted, but like I'm basically a hermit, but the online world is given me these opportunities, So it's hard when you get banned. I mean, hopefully you can appeal, and then the Elon Jennies will grace you with a second chance, which they have for a lot of people. But yeah, it's hard, man. I know there's no like quick fix. There's no easy tips. There's no like seminar on like how to build a successful podcast or whatever. I mean, the people that made it ahead, they had friends that boosted them, or they got in on the time when the going was good. And a lot of people that rose to the top, I hate to say it, probably don't deserve it. I mean, they just post coal, But I do think that, you have to. I mean, it's very hard for me, but I do have a vindictive, envious side of me, and I have to like sort of fight that. I have to bracket that jealousy in me, so that envy. But anyways, what is your shoe size? 13. Yeah, I have big feet. Great sense of humor. Your jolly laugh fits make me chuckle. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please consider moving to Florida. I like Florida. Vibes are good. Yeah, it's not too far away from Canada. Warm weather, sea breeze, beach walk, seafood. I'm not a big fan of seafood. Sunshine, all great ingredients for our inspiration. Yeah, maybe one day. I have a lot of friends in Florida. One day I will visit Florida. I mean, most Canadians have visited Florida. I don't know why I haven't. But, when I was a kid, I didn't really travel a lot because of my old man. We weren't a traveling type. My mom is a traveling type. But, I don't know. I was sort of a... I have to, like, now that I can not move to the States, but now that I can visit the States again, I will make an effort to see my friends in the States. Yeah, so let's move on. These questions are flying by. I'm actually quite proud of my productivity here. It's only been 26 minutes. Poets that you like. This is a good question. I think I answered that once. Denis Levertov, William Carlos Williams, T.S. Eliot. A lot of the ancients, like poets from the East, like Metabai, Saigyo. I mean, yeah, Basho. Some of the beat poets as well. Like, I like a lot of the modernists. I like a lot of the verse type of, prose type of stuff. Experimental stuff like Mallarmé and E. Cummings. The way they manipulate language. I like a lot of poets that were, like, perennialists or, like, somewhat, like, these mystics. Like, Trugpa is good. Fritjof Schuon's poets. I have a bunch of his poet books. I have, the sort of verse poetry of people like Aurobindo, like that type of stuff is good. A lot of my mutuals I have friends like Arthur Powell on Twitter that are good poets. I promoted my one poet friend. If you search Bogsbeard on 27 on Twitter, so BOGGS Beard, like as in facial hair beard 27. He has this book that you could buy on Amazon called Essays. So ASSAYS. So essays. By Turn. That's his poet name. I think it's quality. Maybe I'll put a link in the description. So I bought his book. It's really great of poems. So always support our friends, our mutuals, fellow frogs. There are a number of poets in the E-Right. What is my crush like me back? I don't know. You don't have enough Riz? No. God, I hate those Zoomerisms. I don't know. There's a number of reasons. I think like women are mysterious in that they can find a way to get the ick from you no matter what. And I think maybe persistence is a good thing, but I think like if it's a definitive no, then you have to learn how to, take your lumps, the throes of rejection. But yeah, just try to ease into it, don't be too forceful. You're a homie. Thank you very much. You're a homie. Favorite movie? I don't have a favorite movie. I watch too many movies. It's depending on the moment, but like I have perennial favorites like Apocalypse Now, The Holy Mountain, Exotica. I really don't have like a favorite movie. I can't really pick. The worst trouble you got into as a kid? I was suspended for slapping a girl in the face. Yeah, but we were cool afterwards. But it was just like she was really teasing me. A friend I grew up with, as a kid. I don't know. I think like someone stooged me off. It was in the playground, but yeah, that was the worst one. I got suspended. I got like a 3-day suspension for that one. Um, Even though nowadays I'm a woman respect, I should admit that, but it was stupid. Like this particular girl, we're friends actually nowadays. I don't know. She just like would really like harass me and go after me, and it was very I was like a little kid. I was a little kid. It's not indicative of anything. Oh my God, you slept a girl when you're a kid, therefore you're violent, abusive, blah blah blah. Blah. It's no, no, no. I mean, we were like little kids. This was in like grade 3 or something, and I don't know why. Like I think she was pushing me or something. I got really angry, but I got yeah. And it was like a persistent thing though. Like she really would go after me, but no, we're cool now. We're cool now. But so our impossible. It doesn't say impossible women, but are impossible women the modern equivalent of ancient unit class? I would say that there's something there. There's something. There is something to be said that there's always sort of a class that are detached from traditional engendered norms for a variety of purposes. Of course, Borzi created that term, using the Ottoman Janissary, but he put a T in front of it, right? A TR in front of it. There's always a class, I think, that are not bound by the usual natural norms of, reproduction and gender and family life that do service various empires and regimes throughout history. I don't think it's as explicit nowadays as an identity, right? But I do think that there are a class of them that obviously, they're in, as Silicon Valley moderators, as activists of the anti-you-know-what variety, as even as glow-in-the-darks. I mean, there's whole, the intelligence agencies are full of them, apparently. I mean, they run enough recruiting ads of, like, if you're a beyond woman, please, or beyond man, please come and join us, and you will find a home in the CIA. But, there's something to be said there. This one, I don't know if it was true. I mean, there was this woman that randomly DM'd me once. But of course, like, she's like, I can never meet you, blah, blah, blah. I'm anonymous. It was kind of a letdown. It was actually good. We had this whole conversation about expressing feelings to someone and knowing that they're going to affect them. And I said, like, if I was sort of like more like in a darker place or more sensitive, I mean, I don't know, I'm kind of in a darker place, but if I was more sensitive to these things, I probably would have like freaked out about this. But she's like, I feel bad because I'm overloading you with this, and it's like, I know it's impossible for us to meet, blah blah blah. But I believe this is the same person, probably, because it's anonymous. I still have a huge crush on you, and listening to you with other women in your podcast was really distressing. Hopefully one day I can build up to the courage to talk to you. I mean, that's probably either a troll or, I mean, if it's a sincere thing, I mean, please DM me. My God, what are you waiting for? I do not bite. I just admitted that I slapped a girl when I was a kid. But, no, I've never, apart from that one incident, I've never, what's funny is that the same girl admitted, that he's like, yeah, Gio, I used to really rag on you. I don't blame you. And it's funny that she wasn't even the one that like stooged on us. It was some other person. She actually like, I don't know. Anyways, apart from that one incident, apart from that one graperous outburst when I was a little kid, I do not bite. So please DM me if you are serious. If this is not a troll, it's probably a troll. Wish I was smart enough to understand half the things you talk about. Well, I'm not that smart. I think, I don't know. I think I'm kind of a midwit, I guess. I mean, it's just that I reference a lot of smart things. I don't think I'm particularly smart, but I don't know. Or at least I tell myself that. Maybe that's like just an egotistical thing to like pretend that you're not as smart as you are. I think, I guess I'm clever or whatever, but I'm not particularly, like, there's some people that I've been influenced by, even online, that I feel are way more, have a heftier IQ than I. I'm not smart in technical fields. I can never do math or science or things like that. But thank you nevertheless for the compliment. This is a good one. I know Reddit is cringe and a hostile platform to us, but are there any base subreddits worth following? I don't know of any. I think Reddit is good for, again, speaking of technical knowledge, I think Reddit is good. There used to be base subreddits, but they all get nuked, you know? Reddit is good as a depository of technical knowledge and questions, and to sort of reaffirm certain answers that you might have, but people can explain in depth. There are some philosophy subreddits, like there's this one called, was it a nihilist one or was it something else? It was called Numina something, I don't know. That had like good, more like contemporary philosophy stuff, but also like technical things. Like if you're not sure about certain medical questions or certain technical questions, I mean, it's always a good resource. You know, it's not totally bad, but still, I don't know of any base subreddits. By the way, if someone in the comments wants to drop base subreddits, please, expand our horizons. This is a good one. Is the online data harvesting and targeting advertisement revenue generated by child users across platforms in the West the exploitation of child labor in our times? In some ways, yeah, but it's also exploitative of children in other ways. I think that, the most innocent one that's not really innocent because it instantiates a lot of harmful trends later on in life would be that it's just like crass commercialism and market exploitation of children. Like, it presses the right dopamine centers in children, and I think that's wrong. But also, like, I'm not going to lie, I'm a millennial, so I remember, like, the Sears toy catalog, the Christmas edition. That was, like, a big thing. My parents had to hide that from me when it came in the mail. But there was a huge one, too. But Zoomers will never know how big those catalogs used to be. But anyways, I think that, is it a form of child labor? I know that people are making this argument when the CSGO, skin trading thing was happening, where it's like basically a form of child gambling. And I think that, yeah, you could make an argument there, but I think that it's more just crass exploitation. But it does mine, like all things, all bodies of knowledge mine forms of data to create other bodies of knowledge and to create very controlled market conditions that contribute to further consumerism. But not just consumerism, but all things. Like governments do this with children. They use online data to inform policies. It is kind of exploitative. I wouldn't say it's labor because it's passive, but it certainly is a form of exploitation when you are mining data from children based on their reactions to certain stimuli. I think that there should be some kind of regulation in place when it comes to that. And even like governments and NGOs and sociologists and so forth that work for corporations, not just corporations, but even like, not just to sell you things or sell children things, but also like to program children in certain ways. This has been going on forever. Like the test groups and so forth. A lot of this originated from Tavistock. And a lot of the nefarious stuff that they have been responsible for over the years. My good friend Christopher Sandbach has a lot of great opinions on writing on this and research. So, but that's a very interesting question, actually. Moving on. Given all the philosophic / political ground and dead ends the dissident / E-right has explored over the years, has anyone summarized the state of the union of what ideas we have consensus on and paths we need to explore next? So many Substacks, podcasts, books, it's hard to keep track of and avoid circles. Yeah, but this will never happen. I think it should happen, but there's some figures that have tried to centralize this. But there are a number of common themes or motifs that unite certain factors together that butt heads with one another, right? So I'll give you an example. There was recently another hit piece against BAP. Of course. Every generation there has to be. Once every 2 years or so, there has to be a global conspiracy involving a Bronze Age pervert. But I believe this was in the National Review. Was it NRO? And it was funny because it it talked about the one tweet about the Nietzschean, like, Nietzschean nihilist. But what was funny is that, and I don't exactly, I mean, maybe BAP is saying this for polemical reasons, but it was the one tweet they quoted. I don't know if it was the NRO or if it was another organization, but I don't know. I always doubt myself, but when I have something stuck in my mind, it's pretty much true because, like, the way I remember it, because I'm kind of good with that, but I always doubt myself. So if, like, the name National Review keeps popping up in my head, it's probably National Review. But this quote that, the quote they were using was from a tweet, but also he reiterated it on Russians with Attitude. I don't watch Russians with Attitude that much, but I did watch that one stream that they did with BAP, and it was something like the E-Right was like an alternative path that was explicitly like the E-Right was like racially conscious, secular, vitalistic, focusing on a total politics, the E word, the E word, the Eugen, starts rhymes with Eugene a little bit, that word. And that actually this sort of like trad wholesome Chungus communitarian Christian communist communitarianism that BAP so viciously critiques, that is sort of like polluting the E-Right. And I noticed that there was always like this frog Twitter war over the legacy of what happened like 5 to 7 to 8 years ago, or maybe even almost 10 years ago, where like I remember Lolgo would say, no, actually, a lot of the E-Right was, my own eclectic tanky trad communism. That's what frog Twitter was. And of course that's nonsense. But then of course BAP was saying like, no, like frog Twitter was this thing. It was basically truths about race and gender and it was truths about the nature of society in terms of a much older lens than just like this contractual egalitarianism that liberalism provides. And that actually the trad Christians are like essentially reiterating like a quote unquote base trad version of a lot of like, millions must live, wholesome Chungus, communitarianism, egalitarianism. But, I think BAP goes too far in his criticisms, obviously. I think that a lot of the beef that people have in the E-Right, or rather, not the beef, but a lot of what informs their worldview literally is a negative mimetic chain. What do I mean by that? I mean that when you're in a war with somebody or a faction, you will like agree and amplify your position. And so BAP will like explicitly say like the E-Right was atheist, eugenia, all this stuff, right? But then of course the Christians that are like, that take offense to that, they're like, no, actually, you are a XYZ, blah, blah, blah. And so I think that there will be no set of unifying doctrines other than that we all agree on sort of a greater story to the nature of civilization that is beyond what I would say like liberal modern day egalitarian ideology provides us. We can all agree that we have a better vision of what an integral society looks like. And that actually, civilization was propped up to defend the interests and the character of certain peoples over the outgroup. And that this type of thinking is verboten. So if you're a trad Christian theocrat, you'd say that, Christendom was explicitly made to protect the interests of us, if you are, a nationalist of a certain, variety, you would say, of a certain, Mayo variety, I don't even know. Can you say that term on YouTube now? Then you would say that no, that Faustian European civilization was set up with the explicit interests and concerns of the people that created it is in mind. So I think like that, like basically the anti-civilization, total internationalism, and rootlessness of the current order, that is the one unifying principle. But in terms of like sitting down and saying this is our doctrine of imperial based world, no, that's never going to happen. There's actually, I would say, more of a diversity of thought among the E-right than probably even leftoids, because a lot of leftist discourse and a lot of like the cattiness of trying to cancel each other, a lot of it's just like who can reaffirm the doctrine hard enough. Even like people that say they're communists, they're really just radical liberals, most of them. I mean, there are some tankies, there's some like stuffy old professors like Boris Groys that like, you know, maybe they're like the approximation of, but even Boris Groys, I shouldn't say that. He comes off as very like libtarded. You know, he can come off as a lib sometimes in certain writings, but no, it's like a lot of most of the political left will agree on the fundamentals. There was this one great tweet by an anime avatar account that I forget who it was. Was it a Kagaya's Top Girl, or was it Pantsu Kantwaffen? No, Pantsu Kantwaffen's actually really old head, you know. Or it was someone else. It was some like, I don't think it was an Amarnite. I think it was just like an anime right winger that said like, you know, basically when it comes to the left, the global left, the current contemporary left, you can like have non-economically leftist positions. You can essentially say that capitalism is good, but implicitly. But you can't agree on like minority worship. I mean, sorry, you can't diverge on like minority worship, impossible women worship, or impossible man worship now. You can't like disagree on the social issues of the left. So I think the tweet ended with, so in other words, like, this is what you can't criticize. But when the E-right, like, we criticize each other all the time. Like, even recently, I would think the principle that united most of us, in fact, probably all of us, maybe not all of us, was against a certain medical procedure that the left holds as a sacrament. And no, not the ones of the last 3 years, you know, the not that one, not the stick. You know, if you ever watched that documentary on tainted blood by Kelly Duda called Factor 6, was it Factor 8 or Factor 8? Yeah. Kelly Duda did this documentary on the tainted blood scandal that Bill Clinton was involved in Arkansas prisons that they shipped to Canada. That's what the prisoners called the blood donation, the stick. So, you know, I'm not talking about that medical procedure. I'm talking about, you know, the big one. The one that I had a thread once that blew up that said, like, this is why we fight over it, because it literally determines the character of being itself. Oh, so up until really recently, I thought that most of us were in agreement, but even that we debate over. You know what I mean? So this unified theory, I don't think is going to be as cohesive. I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe one day, maybe if there is selection pressure that comes from outside of the E-right, or if there is an event like that galvanizes most of us, kind of like, you know, Trump. I think that, like, other than that, I really don't see it happening. So anyways, moving on. That was kind of a long-winded answer, but, you know, it needs... Yeah, we are just an amalgamation of, like, substackers and podcasters and so forth. I mean, hey, you're listening to me. Are there any art movements like the Hudson River School within the dissident E-right? Well, I mean, there's New Art Secession, which I am a part of. Me and Matthew Stout and Fen de Villiers. But, I mean, of course, we can't rival the greatness of the Hudson River School. But I do think that even, like, the American regionalists had potential as a reactionary force within the art world at the time, even though a lot of them were, like, New Deal socialists and painted, like, socialist realism. They would be considered like trad parochialism nowadays. But no, I mean, there's yet to be this art movement created. What does the sacking of this is, okay, so you could tell this is from August. Wow, I really, like, see, that's my problem. I neglect a lot of things. I really need a secretary. I wish, like, see, you have to go to my Patreon and subscribe to Patreon or Substack, so I can have enough money to pay a secretary. I really am kind of an aloof, like, academic type. I mean, my personality type is also like that, where it's like I forget the little things. I'm the mediator personality. I'm an INFP, right? INFPs, it's like we always forget the little things. We're too like big picture idealist, we're too flighty. We're too like the little minute things, the routines, the daily routine stuff. I mean, I'm kind of trying to do, but I can't really do. So anyways, what does the sacking of Mar-a-Lago mean for the dissident right going forward? Is the USA now officially a banana republic? Oh, it always was, actually. Will they embolden him again to run again? Well, I'm pretty sure he's going to run again. I think that at the time of recording, there's some other charges about impropriety of a certain personal nature. But I do think that, without saying too much, again, for YouTube purposes, I think that they're really showing, the regime is showing their hand. And I think that, unfortunately, they've determined that Trump will never become POTUS ever again. And I think that, really, again, without saying too much, the sacking of Mar-a-Lago was a dramatic media spectacle at the time. But really, I think that it's hard to say its influence. I think, like, the perp photo, the one that I drew, certainly is impactful. But nowadays, I think that with the hyper-real world we live in, there really can be no, like, big, grand, unifying image or spectacle or a dialectical image. Because really, all of reality becomes subject to a fabulation. And you can't pick one image from another. Only in hindsight, like usually with historical processes, only in hindsight can you really like parse together the influences of it. But nowadays, this is very hard. So, but anyways, moving on. I love that term though, the sacking of Mar-a-Lago. I love that one. That's amazing. The sacking. I should paint that. The sacking of Mar-a-Lago. Like the sacking of Rome. That great image. I think Thomas Cole painted the one in the Course of Empire series, but but yeah, moving on. So, have you ever made pottery? Looks fun. Looks like a fun hobby to try. No, I haven't. I mean, I've watched a lot of pottery videos, but it does look very fun. It's very demanding. It's very time consuming, but if you have access to a kiln, then I highly recommend it. It does look, and you can even like bring it into a fine art context by painting with various slips and glazes and so forth. Are you ever going to do a debates between the so-called racist radfems and versus vitalist nationalists? Well, I mean, Mex Gold had radfem Austrian painter on his show, so maybe you could. No, don't go and check that out. I'm sure. I think like I was going to have a radfem on, but then I had to can the episode for fear of negative attention. And this person I don't think likes me anymore, but I mean, maybe one day. I mean, I don't know. I didn't listen to that episode with Radfem Austrian painter and that guy I should mention, but I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe one day. I don't know. We'll see. I'll try to find a decent Radfem who's not too. I mean, if I choose like someone like Helen of Roy, or what's her name, Louise Penny. I mean, they're too. I mean, they're not Radfem enough. You know what I mean? They're not. Yeah, but anyways, it would be like too. I mean, I know that my good friend, I love saying good friend. That's in the bingo card. My good friend Mary Harrington, she's a kind of radfem, but not really. I mean, wow. Maybe one day I'll have a actual radfem on. I'll just have to search around, but I'm not like a vitalist bodybuilder, so that's maybe I'll have to get someone. Who's he on Twitter? He follows me, Slumdog Grillionaire. He always like trolls radfem Austrian painter. Oh man, or maybe I'll get someone like I know plenty of Vitalist bodybuilders that don't like rad femmes, so we'll see. Maybe we can make it work one day when I have enough time in the summer. Reading news that Melania's wardrobe was searched. What percentage of the feds are? Oh no, God. What percentage of the feds are on impossible women? But the AG, three-letter of a certain variety of Beyond Woman. I don't know. I think like they do have a significant percent, but probably not searching people. Probably they're doing like all of the tech and monitoring duties. So perhaps the e-girl fed that is getting you to dox yourself could probably be in the DMs. Could potentially be a impossible woman under behind the scenes, but who knows? That's a funny question. I can't answer that one. Can you ask your Russian friend, who I had on the show, who works in the Russian media, the one that you did a stream with on the Blue Yellow Country, why the Russians don't appeal to the dissident right and play to the same anti-racist narratives about the West? Surely it's in their interest to build a friendly, similar government in the West. I think there's a number of reasons for that. I know that Joel Davis has asked this question. I think that they figure that the dissident right in North America is largely marginal compared to the regime, and that actually, when it comes to direct one-to-one relationships with their peers and with, not to say it's right or whatever, but I think like a lot of the rhetoric, like in that one speech by Vlad, where he's talking about anti-colonialism and post-colonialism and so forth, he's got to say that stuff. And I think that, yeah, it's kind of cringe and lib from our standards, but I think that means something much different in the global South and the global East than it does to us. And I think that they have to appeal to the sovereignty of these nations to rival, as a power block, to rival the power of the West. And I think they feel that, like, a lot of, like, dissident right-wing people are kind of, like, the only real example the Kremlin has is in Europe. And so they've determined that most of the dissident right are fair weather friends. And, like, for example, from what I've heard, a lot of, like, these identitarians in Europe and a lot of like the Nouveau Droit, they've gone to being Gladio nationalist blue yellow supporters. So I think like that's what they're figuring. They figure that the actual power base is kind of in these countries, and to appeal to certain like dissident sectors of the left, of the right, and sometimes even the left in North America, it is, I would say though, it is a valid criticism of them. I share that criticism. Because, like, why would you want to, like, give money to, like, weirdo tankies? Like, here's the thing. I don't agree with some of these, like, schizo conspiracy theories by the anti-you-know-what activist people that, like some kind of, like, I don't want to insult him. You know what I mean? But, like, he's kind of, like, I don't know why people think he's so important or whatever. But you got, like, these guys, like, these tanky adjacent, like, I don't know, like, Caleb Maupin or gray zone people, or like these journalists, like they're like Russian agents or whatever. Like, even if they are paid by the Kremlin, like even if, like, you know, that one that Logo was at, that meeting where he's holding up his hand, he's forced to hold up his hand. Like, I think like if the Kremlin's paying these like weirdo tanky communists, like these communist retrogrades that have like these weirdo meshed together beliefs that like don't really make sense. And if they were in like a different context, they probably just would be in the political right. But then some of them would be kind of like, pronoun in the bio, impossible women type communists. But like, I think like the Kremlin should, maybe the Kremlin, maybe the conspiracies could become true. The conspiracies that the political left has like churned out for the past 5 years after Trump, 5-6 years, where it's like, the Kremlin funds the dissident right. The Kremlin's funding MAGA. Like, it's like, what if that were true? What if that was real? You know what I mean? Like, the Kremlin, I think, would probably get more bang for their buck if they actually funded the frogs, rather than like these like leftist like tracker activist accounts making these like weirdo conspiracies about Trump, like that some like MAGA chud in the heartland is like getting paid by Vlad, getting paid by, it's like that. It's like Lavrov is like personally sending these people rubles. Like, no, it's like they probably are kind of paying like these alt-left anti-war people, these like weirdo tankies that used to be a part of like the Occupy Wall Street crowd, but that like didn't go woke. Like these Bernie bro people that just refuse to go the way of the Chapoists, and instead they're like these weirdo tanky type of people. It's like, the Kremlin, I mean, maybe I won't accuse anyone specifically. I want to like say like Hawes or Caleb Maupin or whoever, or like Jackson Hinkle, that they're being paid by Vlad and Lavrov. I'm just saying, like, if it's true that some of these organizations are being like paid money through Russia Today or whatever when they used to be in America, it's like, why would they do that? Like, that's stupid. Like, these people are even more marginal than the dissident right. You know what I mean? They probably would get more bang for their buck if they gave like a marginal sum to frogs, because at least frogs have some creativity about trolling the regime. So a little bit of chump change to a millionaire or a billionaire to the frogs is nothing. And it would, like, the bang for the buck would be so incredible. You know what I mean? But, like, anyways, yeah. I don't know why. I think that the Kremlin, the reason they have to say this, like, seemingly woke stuff in a Western context is because, again, it's their allies. And they do have a history of, like, we are the ones that defeated the mid-century Germans in the Patriotic War, and that these people are unshackling themselves from the West and so forth. And that's their framework. And so I think, like, on the one end, you have to, like, sort of bracket your, like, Western political liberal spectrum, right? You have to say that, like, the same people in Russia that are talking about this anti-colonialism, they have, like, a totally different alien view of politics than the same ones in, like, Western academia that talk about post-colonialism. So, I mean, they would be horrified by what some of these even global South leaders think. Like, some of these African heads of state, what they actually believe. They'd be mortified. But anyways, yeah, I know it's kind of stupid, though. I don't exactly agree with the Russians doing that. I think, like, the Russians, like, if the rumors were true, then we would probably live in Basedworld quicker. And they probably would, do they want friendly, dissident right governments in the West? I mean, yeah, I mean, the Russians want a friendly, pro-Russian government no matter what, so... But they're not going to get one anytime soon, or ever, in the West. So, it's kind of like, it is a losing proposition for them and for us. Are you familiar with the Asian artist Gina Park? Her art looks pretty based. I'm not familiar. But having browsed these images here, they do look pretty fun. They look pretty, like, surrealistic. She's bringing back realism. There's elements of, like, classicism, there's these arrangements of statues that are kind of, like, very vapor wavy. Look up the painting she did called The Moon Palace. That's, like, you could, like, put Macintosh Plus behind there. And, her portraits and her, her figurative work is quite excellent, I mean, a lot of it's just, like, of parties and so forth. And some of them are, like, very good images. Like, her painting of Fukushima, The Men Under the Cloth, is really good. I like that one. Yeah, I think she's a great artist, and I aspire to paint like this. I mean, some compositions, like, border on that sort of, like, contemporary realism style. That's like, here's a little bit of the Secessionists, here's a little bit of Nouveau, here's a little bit of surrealism. It's sort of like that kind of contemporary style of figurative work. It's like new figuration type of stuff, but I can see like she's playing around with based elements. But of course, being from Korea, Korea's being colonized with Western political nonsense, but still being from Korea, like, she's sufficiently outside of the spectrum of, like, Western, like, political artwork, the contemporary artwork that is heavily politicized, in like a negative way. Of course, all art is political in some respects. I think, yeah, I mean, her style is fresh and unique, and I really like it. So thank you for the recommend, Gina Park. So moving on. Is there a link? Is this link still active? Yes, it is. I mean, it just said it takes me a really long time. Hi, hello. Hope you're having a good day. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you have any tips for bullying yourself into making art if you got the urge to create but sort of don't feel like actually picking up pen or brush? Just do it. Um, it's hard for me, I'll tell you the truth. It's very hard. I have to be in the mood because I have so many things on the go. Being a, conversationalist podcaster and writing, especially writing a book now, and like being a content creator in the flow. It's very hard to motivate myself, but I think that if you look at things, like if you look at your favorite painters, if you look at painting videos, even just like some random person doing like kitschy type of stuff, if you like go out of your way to read essays on painting, if you like browse like wide walls or whatever, or like art forum and be like, wow, I could do better than this. I think like there are people that paint, like there are full-time artists that don't do like an intellectual work, that just paint and create every single day. And it can be hard to really motivate yourself. And I don't have an easy answer besides reminding yourself of why you do what you do, and getting excited about the images that you wish to create, and sort of doing, I think, like exercises such as preliminary sketching that gets you into the mood of it. I think like and I used to do this too, just like jump into it by using photo references and like painting as I go. I used to do that a lot with landscapes, but I think like doing preliminary stuff, like even like just busy work in the studio, or exercises that'll help you really motivate yourself. It's sort of like once you start something and do it, then you're in a flow, and you can like, it becomes easier over time. But I have no, like, I can only realistically paint for like an hour or 2 hours before I get tired of it, and I'll have to go back to sketching, or I'll have to go back to writing or something. I mean, every day. Like, I mean, I do believe in the sort of in the Ernst Younger, Ronald Dahl philosophy that you can really produce great work at most 3 hours a day. Anything over that's just really just a slop, or you get sloppy, or you don't really care, or it becomes like it deviates from the vision. So, anyways, yeah. Here we go. You're really attractive. Well, that's find that hard to believe, but thank you. I hope it's not a troll. So again, if you've come in the middle, this is from the Not Gonna Lie, anonymous questions. It's better than Curious Cat, but it's in the link in the description, my link tree. Absolute favorite medium technique to work with, and why? Well, I mean, I used to say painting, but I actually do like printmaking. I actually do like woodcuts and engraving. But painting still has a special place for me. But I like preliminary sketching. I like to experiment with sketches. I like them better sometimes than finished work, because the way I work is that I do enough sketches where by the time I do the actual painting, it's already like in my head, and I already like know more or less what I'm going to do, and I'm familiar with the subject matter. And so I feel like that method negates the original spontaneity of what I used to paint. And so I think like printmaking has elements of spontaneity, but it's very formulaic. And so by the time you approach a subject matter when it comes to making a print, you have to like be familiar enough with the image. But then the beauty of woodcut is that you can treat it like a sketch. You can sort of just have a basic outline, and then in terms of the tone and the texture and the lighting, you can sort of like, as you go along, you can create as you go along. But then of course that's dangerous, because you have to know like where you're going, if that makes sense. Because then what happens is that you can like not plan a composition out, a print out, so then it just looks sloppy. And especially like if you're doing color blocks, which I don't do. Maybe I'll do one day. I'll do tone blocks. Then you have to like really plan out. And yeah, so I think printmaking is my thing, but I will always have a particular love of painting. And people, they say I have a really good color sense. But the thing that's crazy about me is that I don't particularly care about, I know this sounds crazy, but like, I do care about color. I care about the accuracy of color, but there are painters that like they love the sensuousness of it. They love like the certain compositions, but me, I like the sort of technical aspect of temperature and color and suggestion. But when it comes to like, I do like good color, but I don't obsess over it. I'm much more of a tonalist. I love good tone. I love dramatic lights and darks, and that's why I love printmaking. But then people are like, Gio, you have a really good color sense. Like, I had to work to have that color sense, and I'm like, oh wow, that's crazy. Because like after a while, like I internalized all the rules by watching videos and reading. That I think like with painting you have to make a million decisions on the fly, and I feel like I've improved in the last few years with my drawing ability, and that's something that I focus on more. Is the sketch, is the drawing, is the preliminary sketch, is the color sketch with watercolors or even acrylic paint, but not particularly caring about it too much. Like that's what I love. I love the spontaneity of the sketch. I don't really like by the time I get to the finished painting, the spontaneity has to by definition leave. At least in some respects. But yeah, I still painting is special, but I do love printmaking. Printmaking is some of my favorite. Probably not my favorite, but the woodcut, the wood engraving is. But now I'm getting more proficient at copper plate engraving. So it's a different medium altogether, like copper and plastic engraving. So yeah. But thank you. That's a very nice question. So moving on to the rest of them. These are the ones I screen capped. So I have a few left before I get to the new ones. And so we're making pretty good time. It's been an hour. Oh boy. What are your thoughts on Anselm Kiefer's exhibition, Cloth of Gold? I know landscapes have your heart, and this show is all about landscapes. I love it. Yeah, I love Heart of Gold as well. I think it's one of his best works. I talk about Anselm Kiefer when I review. I will get back to that, by the way. I just haven't had time to record. John David Ebert's Art After Metaphysics. But Cloth of Gold, when it comes to the way that Anselm Kiefer, the way that he really uses the landscape as a metaphor of memory. As a metaphor of traumatic memory, but also the triumph of the landscape over the tragedy of history. Because again, the poppies with the scythes, that is sort of a way in which life grows and is cut down. And of course, he's painting this after the war. That's like most of his works is when he was a child, going through the rubble of Germany. And of course, the poppies are perennially, the poppies and the fields come up again and again in his work as a symbol of renewal and rebirth, but also that plan of like wanting to turn Germany into a giant poppy field or a giant, garden center or whatever, a giant crop. But, Field of Gold, Cloth of Gold, some of his most stunning landscapes, some of his most stunning floral landscapes, the wheat fields with the scythe. That like, you want to talk about trad-based blood and soil, like that, I'm not going to accuse Kiefer of those connotations, but it really is sort of indicative of this is connecting us to what the land is in its most primordial fashion. So for his one called Field of the Cloth of Gold, with a lot of axe heads dancing in the landscape, in this barren field, this desertified wasteland. Of course, you could read an ecological meaning into it, but really it's a stunning work. All of them are stunning works. Like even the iron plate one he did, with like the snake in the middle, the golden snake. The dress in the composition, really amazing, stunning work. But the way he degrades the different fields, it's sort of like a commentary on like how history is being erased, in a way. It's being chipped away. The field that gives us sustenance, that gives us our identity and our culture, our meaning, that is being picked clean. And so the scythes dance upon the landscape, ready to do their work to renew that cycle of the crop being cut down and replanted and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, that's some of his most monumental works come from that series. So And then, of course, like, he's got allusions to that one event that happened in the 20th century, The glistening gold one is of a holding facility of that particular regime in Germany, but, anyways, moving on. So, yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I love Anselm Kiefer. He's one of my favorites. I just want to say that I've reread many of your modern art madness essays in WordPress archive because I honestly find them so insightful. Oh, thank you very much. I mean, all few of you who still remember. I have to bring those back. I was bringing them back as YouTube videos, but I should go back to it. As another artist in these circles, I feel the visual IQ of the E-Write severely lacking. Keep putting in the good work, Gio. It's really enlightening. Thank you very much. My God, I wish I knew your name. But these are all anonymous. Recently stumbled upon the Vanitas still life paintings, very based and poetically beautiful. Aside from religious art, are there any other art genres similar to Vanitas that I should check out? Thanks for all you do, friend. You're quickly becoming the counter elite's art professor. I don't know about that, but thank you very much for that comment. So Vanitas means vanity, of course, in Latin. Is a still life, but it's a still life that has symbols and has a lot of arrangements of symbols and elements, even like floral arrangements and so forth, that denote a particular moral lesson or moral conceit. Usually has a memento mori in the form of a skull, like a young woman holding a skull. That's a common theme. And it's meant to denote the sort of vanity of life on this planet. It's meant to sort of a still life that has an arrangement of painted elements that remind you of the beyond. That remind you that this life is temporal. Now, you could say that in some weird way, the literati painting in China and Japan is somewhat similar, but in a very different way. It's not sort of like this Western metaphysical notion of life and death. Rather, it is sort of looking at the sort of the mutually arising and ceasing of all things. Things come into being and go out of being. The famous one, I forget the exact literati painter. The fish boat. The fisherman is in the middle of the great mountains, right? Because there's that koan that says when you start Zen, the mountains are mountains and the rivers are rivers. But then when you finish, the mountains again are mountains and the rivers are still rivers. After you've gone through this process, not process, but rather you've gone through this sort of realization of the true nature of things, the Buddha nature of things. This is what the artwork in some ways is meant to depict. But yeah, I mean, there's very little comparisons with other forms of art. I mean, you could say the genre painting, of course, but that requires figuration, that requires mythological motifs. But the Vanitas still lifes, I mean, I'm not a big fan of still lifes, but the Vanitas, the arrangements are very interesting because inanimate objects that you're painting can imply a drama and can also imply a religious and a moral lesson. Now, I think certain elements of the landscape can also do this, similar to the Vanitas, in the hands of certain very skilled painters, I think that the landscape can create the same effect or the same lesson, the same field and interplay of elements. And I think like every great work of art has that. But the Vanitas is unique in that regard. So, very interesting. Very high IQ fans I have. Oh my God. Thoughts on the Canadian heraldic authority, even as in ancient and Lindia's heraldry is gone woke / cringe in Canada. Don't have arms granting in my country. Looking at arms registration with the Cronista de Armas de Castilla y León, Herald of Malta, Augustan Society, or NEHGS, Committee on Heraldry. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the heraldry thing, unfortunately, like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean as much. I mean, it should, but yeah, it's become. I hate that term, become woke, but yeah, it's become derooted from its original context. The one in Canada is absolutely abysmal. And speaking of my good friend Mary Harrington, apparently the Heraldic Society of Canada created a new flag, a coat of arms that replaces both the cross and the fleur-de-lis in the Canadian crown, in the symbol, and puts maple leafs on it. Like, totally secular, like, here's Canada, maple leafs. Maybe, might as well just put a hockey puck there. Might as well put a bottle of Molson Canadian on the crown. But, you know, totally just gutted of its original symbolism and its roots to Christian Europe, of course. But, you know, what do you expect? It's Trudeau's, Trudeau's Canada. Thanks, Trudeau. No, literally thanks, Trudeau. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a disaster, obviously. Aside from your podcast in Astral Flight Simulation, my good friend Astral, what podcast should I check out? I follow Doomer Optimism. I haven't heard of Doomer Optimism. Of course, Subversive, the Alex Kashuta, Imperium Cast, Red Scare, Cracks in Postmodernity. I haven't heard of Cracks in Postmodernity, but it's a good selection here. Outsider Theory, my good friend Jeffrey Schollenberger, who will be on the show one day, hopefully. The Fed Post, or rather, well, it's You People Are Sick now. The Computer Room, which is, well, yeah, the Computer Room is still going with Catherine and Poetry Grifter. X-Hoss, Beautiful Toilet. Yeah, I love Beautiful Toilet. I was recently on Beautiful Toilet. The Pondering Pod. I don't know what Pondering Pond is. Palladium. Ooh, I can't say I endorse Palladium, though. They have blocked me on Twitter. I think because I called some drama from back in the Thermidor magazine days. But I didn't know that Palladium had a podcast. Interesting. I don't know, follow Jay Burden. Follow lesser known ones. Follow the War Report, obviously. My good friends Constantine Mertelli and Goran GSP. What else? I mean, these are all great ones, but, well, I mean, not all of them, but I don't know what Cracks in Postmodernity sound interesting. I have to check that out. Maybe if someone in the comments wants to enlighten me. What else? Who am I going to recommend? You know, there's a bunch of them. You could just look around. I mean, everyone has a podcast nowadays. But, like, I don't have time to listen to a lot. I mean, except for my friends. Like, nowadays I'm so busy, I don't really go out of my way to listen to stuff. I try, but there's a lot of stuff I want to listen to, but then, you know, it escapes me. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of stuff that I listen to regularly that'll go out of my way. I mean, Contain, of course, with Barrett Avner, Contain. There used to be Hate Fiction by Jonna, but that's unfortunately gone. I mean, the archive is still there on Patreon, but anyways, who else? I'm trying to think, because there's so many I want to go out of my way to listen to. Of course, you know, Safety Propaganda, Adam Lair. Yeah, but, like, other than that, like, I mean, there's a bunch of E-Right ones. Seems everyone has a podcast. You know, I've been on a few of the big ones. You know, I've yet to be on Benjamin Boyce. I mean, he might invite me one day, hopefully, if someone could put in a good word. He follows me on Twitter, so. Anyways, Upper Class has always promoted uniqueness among the pores, and oh god, this is another question. Upper Class has always promoted uniqueness among the pores, as eunuchs make ideal servants and singers for their pleasure. Castratis. Impossible Women is oddly enforcing in roles beauty. Anyone doing class analysis? There are some. I mean, I'm sure Amy Therese could do this, but not like explicit class analysis. I mean, there's probably some like weirdo tanky, like Hawes person that could probably do like a pretty good class analysis of this phenomenon. Trad roles beauty slash beauty trad roles. It's oddly enforced. Anyone doing class analysis, careerist middle class sees impossible women, impossible kids as means to climb in a GAE decline. Working class opposed. Yeah, I mean, of course, there are some people, like some reactionary people. I mean, I know that Molbug has the concept of luxury beliefs, but I think there's a limit to class analysis, though. I think that the whole, like, fixation on this particular iteration of leftist ideology cannot be reduced down to class analysis, I don't feel. I don't think, rather. I mean, yeah, I feel like you can't. It's so much more broader than just, like, these are economic forces that are pressuring people into doing this or whatever. Or but like, here's the problem with class analysis, is that it's like all materialist theories, it's just giving you the dictates of what's happening on the ground. It doesn't really have that good of an explanatory power when it escapes its confines of economism. So what do I mean? This is a perfect example. You know, the PMC class, the professional managerial class, they're signing on to this ideology so they can get ahead in the globalist world order, blah blah blah. They can be, appear moral in front of their friends, but it never explains the social conditions and the reason why this is enforced. Other than, I guess you could say that capital liquidates identity for, to make a maximum alpha consumer base, because you're literally consuming identity. You're consuming pharmaceuticals. You're consuming all elements of reality to prop up this thing. But then that's still, and this is the problem I think with, in the one chapter I talk about neoliberal kitsch when it comes to art. It's not merely neoliberalism as an economic force that is liquidating all social relations. There has to be something deeper and more metaphysical, in my opinion, because then you're just coming up with sort of weirdo conjectures to say that, my materialist Marxist class analysis of material conditions, that is sufficient. But I don't think that's sufficient. So but that's my own personal opinion. Marxists, I guess, I don't know. I guess Tinkzorg can say it's Gnosticism and class analysis or whatever. But I agree to disagree. All right. Who really wrote the works of William Shakespeare? A black woman. De Vere. I don't know. William Shakespeare. Come on. The whole De Vere thing I've never got into. I don't really care that much, but I assume it's William Shakespeare. No, and William Shakespeare, of course, was a by POC. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. In New York City, most likely actually does have BPD. I don't know what that's referring to. I guess people in New York City have a propensity for borderline personality disorder. I don't know. That's weird. But anyways, I'm getting distracted by a screen cap of a tweet about Forgotten Frog Twitter. Oh my god, I screen capped someone liking a tweet where I'm dunking on Banksy. Perk Angle Groiper. Shout out to Perk Angle Groiper. That's amazing. Oh my god. But anyways, so this is what Sentinel of the Grave said about Forgotten Frog Twitter. Forgotten Frog Twitter is just sorting the wheat from the chaff like Nicholas Salmon did G-slur internet moralism on the level of 9gagger Reddit in the proper sense of the term, outing itself yet again. Six semper normal F-slurs. Then Scott Greergroiper. I wonder what he's doing. Forgotten Frog Twitter. The razor separating the elect from non-elect. No one can easily see who truly gets it. And then, of course, Sentinel of the Grave says he doesn't know that you can only access the Forgotten Frog Twitter Instagram account from JSG's Alpine supercomputer. I think that's I forget which Groiper that is. Is that JSG? Remember Nick Fuentes Groiper? That was a great account. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm browsing my old screen caps here. They're quite funny. Anyways. Here we go. The memification of Martha's oh god, see this, you could tell this is from last year. The memification of Martha's Vineyard must continue. The summer colony must be digitally recolonized. Mimetic vineyards must be planted on an island where no vineyards exist. Only vines will bear fruit. I agree 100%. Martha's Vineyard is an imagined place. It is an imagined community of the super elite. And only by making our own Martha's Vineyard, our own pretense to elite power, can we truly smash the influence of the, Martha's Vineyard, that I wouldn't even say is real, but is hyper real. Any thoughts on the Loomis paintings like Bierstadt? The hard right tends to have a negative view of romantic painting. I don't know about that, because a lot of the hard right, they are romanticists themselves. But of course, that probably comes from Nietzsche. The view of against romanticism, which is kind of ironic because a lot of factions of the E-right are romantic in nature. But I do think that Bierstadt was revealing a sort of mystical, the Illuminists and Bierstadt in particular, they were revealing a sort of like, and the Tonalists were revealing a more like mystical side of the American landscape. They truly were, I think, seeing something that is in the American landscape as old as time itself. And I think that plays into the romantic vision of what the conquering of America was to the first settlers here. And I think that the sort of depiction of wild nature, the grandiosity of it, lifting it up to a sort of titanic power. Like there's the way that he depicted the landscapes and how large his final works were. They were like theater piece sets that he unveiled slowly when you showed them. It's really quite fascinating when you see a Bierstadt. The level of detail, but also the sort of mystical nature of entering into the landscape from the forest, and how that reveals the sort of spirit of America itself. And I think that is like sort of like Albert Bierstadt, out of all of them, I feel was he really got it, even being an immigrant to America. So the hard right tends to have a negative view of the romantic painters, but yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, a lot of trads are romanticists, I feel, at heart. I'm seeing a lot of right-wingers. I'm seeing right-wingers into perfume nationalism as a daily rebellious counter to the neoliberal HR sanitized office safe flattened GE culture. Right-wingers use perfume to make a political statement that goes back to at least the royalist sympathized muscadins of France. Do you wear any cologne/perfume? I didn't know that, but of course, yes, of course, the higher classes wear perfume. I mean, yeah, I wear cologne. I mean, I should perfume max. But I have a very plebeian, stereotypically Italian taste in cologne. A lot of black suit and stuff like that. But no, I will. Maybe I'll take the perfume pill one day. But I do like wearing cologne. What topics of conversation should we be discussing on the E-Right/DR, but we aren't? I think anything besides dating discourse, anything besides gender wars, anything that goes back to what Frog Trader was great at, which is very hot philosophic discussions on political philosophy, on theology, on stuff like that. None of this crap about like lowest IQ dating discourse. And you know the type of accounts that do this. Okay? And yes, I know I indulge in it as well. So I'm answering your question in negative. Yes, I do indulge in it. I do listen to, I do perk up when people talk about certain things. But I think it's just in terms of like what men do, what women do, it's just inane and stupid, and we should move beyond it. And please, for the love of God, stop it with the whole dating gender war discourse. I mean, please. So anything else but that, put it that way. I'm answering your question, friend, in a negative. But if you want to know, we should be talking about a balance of theoretical, philosophic discussions on things like religion and the work of art, but not like going at each other's throats, like the whole pagan versus Christian thing. But also, we should be starting to think of pragmatic ways to actually achieve power that is within our reach on the local level and so forth. And there should be like workshops done. Like this is what leftoids do. This is what activists do. In the left. So yeah, but anything other than like gender war dating discourse is, oh God, I'm so tired of it. It's so meaningless at the end of the day. I mean, like literally it just comes down to individual experience. Like, I mean, I know I can't speak because I can't, I don't relate to like most common experiences that people have, but still that shouldn't impede me from having an opinion to say that we waste so much ungodly amounts of time on this stuff. But we have a few more here. Oh boy. Okay, so now we're getting into the more or semi-recent ones. Okay, next question. Does Canada have a homeless problem? The problem is getting bad in the States. Many citizens living in tents and shanties. The homeless population resides in old, rundown, extended stay motels. Some of the very beggars are very aggressive. Gentlemen may have to go back to carrying a cane or swagger stick. Is that Gentleman Luxury that sent that? Yes, Canada is starting to have a homeless problem. In Vancouver, especially, it's really bad. Um, there may not be as much violence as there is in the States, but certainly that's also increasing. They do stay in abandoned motels or they stay in like rundown shack motels. There's this great documentary I saw actually fairly close to me, Niagara Falls, about this because Niagara Falls is littered with these like really cheap motels, right? For obvious reasons, as a tourist trap, as a honeymoon tourist trap. These old like motels from like the 60s and 70s. One of them they converted to like this homeless halfway house thing where they could go there to live cheaply, and they like created this little community. I believe it's just called Motel. I think you can find the documentary online, but I remember seeing it on like back when they had IFC. I miss IFC. I miss Canadian IFC. But yeah, definitely we're starting to mimic the same problems as the States. Will complete foreign replacement of Anglo-Canada occur before or after replacement of old stock Americans? Demographic acceleration is not looking good. I would say that if Trudeau has his way, it's similar, but you have to realize that America has, in some ways, more demographic pressures than the average Canadian. Now, Canada, as a small nation, we don't have enough services. It's getting really bad. But in terms of, like, the problems that America faces on its border, it's not as bad. It's just that our government is a Thanatos-driven, let's put it that way. I can't say the S word. Let's say it's a sunset order government that imports its own problems. That, you know, our system as a small nation can't cope. But no, I think that in some weird ways, I mean, don't quote me on this. I don't have the statistics, but the demographics of like Anglophone and Francophone Canadians in some ways are a bit more stable, I think, than quote unquote heritage Americans. But we'll see. I think that, yeah, certainly, I mean, that's going to change though. I mean, both countries are headed for a bad direction, but you know. Stumbled across FOMA, FOMA, Fear of Missing Art at FOMA Mag on Instagram. Looks pretty based. Peppy Frog art is featured in the mag issues. I'll check that out, FOMO. So Fear of Missing Art. I think I've heard of that, or I've received this message before. How do Canadians feel about your neighbor Greenland? Is there a close relationship? Do Anglo-Canadians immigrate there to escape? Trump's instinct to pursue Greenland as a territory was a good one. Probably best for the Anglo-Saxon peoples long term that Greenland remain free of the GAE Browning GAE effect. We don't think about Greenland that much. I think that, I mean, you could make some argument, but I mean, I think like Trump, that was a good element of him at least trying to think about a true like nation state project, like annexing Greenland. That's like something that's ambitious and futurist, and you know, something that where besides Alaska, America can make a claim in you know, in these rugged climates, and that it could become a refuge for the American citizens. That was a great plan. I think I wish that unfortunately our government doesn't have the vision to do anything like that, but you know, whatever. Not even secure our northern border. I mean, you know, the Russians could just go through any day now. You know, really, yeah, I mean, we don't have that type of vision. But I think that was, people thought it was like kooky and weird and like whatever. But it actually was, I think, a good plan on Trump's part. It was really a forward-thinking type of maneuver. So, anyways, these are the more recent ones that I've neglected. Again, the not gonna lie messaging, anonymous messaging. It's in the description. Of course, don't flood me with them. It's it's in my link tree. Okay. Hey, is that Ignatius Riley on Twitter? I have him too at UK Ridge 70 _77. Check out my work at ryanmurtha.net, art and philosophy. Oh, okay, well, it's a little promo. I'll check out your work. I enjoyed the conversation with Morgoth Lad, and mentioning that 2016 took me back to the Plebeian podcast, to which I was on the last episode, by the way. Presumably, there's no word of Adam or Alexander. Oh, I remember Alexander, yeah. It would be great if Wallace and co came back. God bless, and hopefully he and the good guy finds favor with us. Pray daily for his blessing. I too wish that they would come back, but I from of what I heard last, Adam lives a quiet life, and he doesn't want to like engage in internet politics again. So, have you set up Entropy yet? Italian work ethic. Maybe one day I'll set up Entropy. I'll set up Entropy. So apologies if you have had this question before, but how would you outline the difference on border between a craft such as stone carving or shoemaking, etc., and art? Is the stonemason or cobbler an artist when he is adding the frivolous aesthetic touches to his creation that serves no utility or purpose? He is an artist in a sense, but of course it still is for a utilitarian purpose, whereas a sculpture or an installation or a folk craft in a fine art context would be on display, would be overtly ornamental, and the concerns of utility would sort of not be there. I think that's a good delineation. Now, it takes artistic skill to do a lot of crafts, but crafts do not operate in the same way that fine art does, because a lot of the times these crafts, like illustration, are meant to be repeated over and over again, and they're meant to be stock designs that are followed through on, and they're meant for, again, the purposes of utility. Whereas in the fine art context, the art object, even the print, is a unique entity that has its own world unto itself. Whereas crafts acquire a world through use and through the skill of the trade. So if that makes sense. That makes sense, because the fine art object is creating a world unto itself, but the utility of the craft object embodies a world over time. So if that makes sense. But that's a good question, actually. That's a really good question. Hey, Gio, I have a question that I think you'd be right guy to answer. What is it called when you can produce a piece of art in the present but successfully convince everyone that is authentically from the past? Zombie formalism, that would be a form. Okay, so his @ is Papa Petro. I'm assuming on Twitter. That would be like zombie formalism. That would be like you're sort of like LARPing a stylization of the past. Of course, a lot of like counterfeiters are masters at forging various making allusions to artworks that may have come from the past. So, but that basically, I mean, zombie formalism is a good term. Here's the most recent ones. Do you like fish? Not really. I like shrimp. I'm not a fish guy. What's the best way to ask you a question? Get some advice. You could DM me on Twitter, I guess. But you can ask an anonymous question. But of course, for longer stuff, you could DM me on Twitter or Telegram, even Instagram. But I'm very terrible with messages. So that's why I like doing something more publicly. If you like message me saying check DMs, like if you like at me on Twitter saying check DMs, probably that's the best bet. Send me a long DM. I'm once again asking you to set up Entropy. I'll ask Prude next Digital Archipelago. I'll make a note of it. To, to set up Entropy. What do you think of ethnatism, ethno-nationalism? I mean, I know, like, back in the day, I was predisposed to this idea of, like, everyone gets their own little ethnic nationalist, ethnic homeland, but I think that geopolitics complicates it, but in general, I think that everyone should, like, even if you are conquered by a larger power or regional bloc, I mean, you should have, within reason, pride in your own ethnicity, and I think that really ethnos, it's not just, ethnos does not just imply race, by the way. It's a much more broader category. Mike from Imperium Press goes into this. He has the most sane and rational, I think, defense of the ethnat things. So it implies much more than just race as a biological phenomenon, right? So, but yeah, I generally have a favorable or a positive opinion. I think like the sort of demonization of like ethno-nationalism automatically implies Muslim supremacy. That's not the case, obviously. I mean, that's like a media concoction. That's a framing of the political left that you should avoid. Are you Italian? Yes. I mean, I can't believe you don't know that. I'm ethnically Italian. Um, oh my God, why are people sending me this? The smaller the breast, I can't say it. The smaller the breast, the sweeter the other part. I don't know about that. I haven't. Oh my God, the boob discourse is incredible. I don't know. I don't have a. To tell you the truth, like people think like, oh, Gio, you like the big ones. You're like a Renault Fault, right? Oh yeah, I mean they're like big, but like small ones. I don't really have a preference. I think it's funny that Cassandra on Twitter, she has the tweet where she's like, boobs or ass, bro. What about her? And it's like some abstract thing. And I'm more of a personality guy. I know I shouldn't say that because people think I'm lying and being like Mahosam Chungus, but I think if a woman is aesthetically, if a woman is pleasing in a beautiful way, but yet she's her personality is off-putting. I mean, it's kind of I like a kind smile. That's my thing. I like if a woman has a good smile, not like the whole like condescending like chauvinist like you should smile more, but if you could tell like a woman has a kind face that's inviting and a kind smile and she's a nice person, I like that. It's indicative of a good personality, a humorous, not so serious but yet loving and caring personality. That's why I think a good smile. Yeah, but then again, looks can be deceiving. Like there's women that do have resting B word, B face for YouTube. I don't want to say the word, but that have great personalities. It's just that so it's a heuristic. It's a heuristic, but that is a funny question. Here's just a troll one. You're in a big city. Please lose weight. Seriously, stuff. Oh, it's like you don't like my favorite e-celeb, so therefore, you know what I love when people say I liked you, but well, I guess you never liked me before. So I love when people say that. It's like I liked you, but like you don't like my favorite e-celeb. So I'm not gonna rock the boat by saying which one, but I liked you, but like it's so like who cares? It's like you're literally just sending me an anonymous message. I don't really, I used to like you, but it's like, okay. And now it's like, I hate when people have to announce like, I'm unfollowing you. I can't like, just unfollow then. Sometimes things that are best left to silence. But anyways, here's the next question. Zendaya would. No, I would not. Zendaya, I mean, I know like it's a meme, like, oh, she's ugly, but yeah, she kind of is ugly. I mean, if you wanted an African American actress that looks beautiful, I mean, there's tons of them. Which is another thing too. I saw that my friend, was it Charles Uxell, or was it one Car Y fan that had this tweet that blew up? I think I have it. He got ratioed for it by POC Twitter, like. It's so funny. Like I'm just thinking about that. Like, you don't like my favorite celeb, so it's like wow. And by the way, the one that he's mentioning recently crashed and burned, so that's funny. Friends Woo Mid. So at Friends FRENS We Made Friends We Made capital. So capital F, capital W, capital M. He's a longtime follower of mine, but he put this very unflattering 56% caricature of Zendaya in the new Dune movie. And I was going to say something. I was going to say, like, why is it that they always have to resort to, like, you are insulting me personally? It's never, like, they can never abstract it to admit that, like, if one of us is ugly, then you're saying all of us are ugly, right? It's like, no, it's like Zendaya is like not that attractive. What's wrong with saying that? It's like, okay, she's not that attractive. But it's like, Why do you have to make a big, and then they'll post like images of actually attractive by POC women, right? And it's like, yeah, there are tons of them that are attractive, but it's like, you can't just say like, okay, like this one is like you know what I mean, like this one is like oh, like she's one of us, so therefore it's no, like you just abstract it to say, listen, like they have to abstract to say that you're saying all of us are ugly, and okay, yes, does it mean that does Twitter racist? Do they use Zendaya as an example to say that they're all ugly? Yeah, of course, but I'm saying in this case or in most cases, when people say, you know what, I don't find Zendaya that attractive, why do you have to then go and say that means you don't find all of them you find all of them unattractive? It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. It's just like but again, it's one of those stupid like culture, like meaningless culture war issues, not like culture war issues that actually matter. But it's like, can we all admit that Zendaya is not like a perfect, like, stereotypically beautiful Hollywood actress? Okay, it's like fine, whatever. And I don't know, like even okay, her looks, but I think even her acting skills, from what I've seen, it's like I don't know, she's kind of wooden. I don't know, she's not that particularly great of an actress. Any place I can see your art, TBH. Yeah, my Instagram, my Facebook. I'm working on my website. I'm always working on my website, but it's just I have to stock it. It's a long process. But my Facebook archive has all of my artwork from past and present. So, do you actually check this? If so, do you know any cool distant musicians? Yeah, there are tons of them. You could look around. People DM me, but I can't there are some of them, like I know I can't think of any on the top of my head. Oh my good friend Ancient Days, he came out with a good black metal album I'm gonna review. So that's one example. I think Bizarchives knows people or does music himself or so forth. So hi, I am I don't know, this is supposed to be anonymous, okay, whatever. I don't know who that is. Bara Becky. I don't know. So hey friend, sorry for the absence. Been pretty black-pilled lately. Saw your excellent helmet study on Instagram. Do you take commissions? Maybe one day you can embolden my coat of arms. Yeah, I do take commissions. Just DM me. Based wedding gift ideas. The couple is kind of normie. 6-figure apartment dwellers. He is Catholic, but she isn't. I'm a groomsman. Something religious themed. I think that would be a good one if he's Catholic. I don't know, wedding gifts. I mean, I don't know. I mean, so what are you gonna give a wedding gift? An appliance? I don't know. That's kind of favorite movie, TV series right now. Favorite movie right now. I'm trying to get through all 5 hours of Until the End of the World. So that's a good one. But in terms of favorite series, I really like the anime Technolize. It's kind of weird spelling, but if you search Technolize, it's kind of like Lane. But I'm also trying to watch that now as well. I don't know. I've been watching Fish Tank, even though a lot of it's really boring. But the boring is spliced with moments of actual good Kino content by I've talked about Fish Tank and the sort of like theory cell take on it, and I think it is worthy of exploration as a concept, even though if it is just like Big Brother for like neurodivergent internet dwellers. But how familiar are you with the works of Blaise Pascal, specifically his book Pensies? Seems to provide a lot of solutions related to the questions brought by postmodernism. I'm not that familiar with the works of Pascal, besides The Leap of Faith, obviously. But very interesting. I wonder how it relates to postmodernism. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, so that's all the questions. So I wanted to talk about a few other things, but maybe I'll have to. This has gone on for almost 2 hours, so in the paywalled version, I talk about some other things. So let's have a music break. I'll see you on the other side. Thank you all. Thank you for listening to the Content Minded Podcast, where every Wednesday there are interesting guests, amazing ideas, solo streams, and discussions on a diverse array of topics from art, philosophy, history, and more. The free version will be available both here on YouTube and as a downloadable link on Anchor and Spotify, as well as on Substack. Each week, the full, uncensored, and spicier version will now be available on both Patreon and Substack, where you will have access to the full archive of both Content Minded and of Giant Reviews, where I break down interesting texts every week, including other exciting paywalled articles and good content. Thank you all. Please like, share, and subscribe. God bless. Goodbye. Help keep the content renaissance alive. Too sweet.